The morning began like any other. Claire stood in the kitchen, humming softly while making breakfast. The smell of fresh coffee filled the apartment, and sunlight poured through the windows. Watching her move around the room, I smiled to myself. For 5 years, this had been our routine. Simple, peaceful, comfortable. We had disagreements like every married couple, but I had never questioned her love. She was thoughtful, patient, and always remembered the little things that made me smile. She looked over her shoulder. "You're staring again." I laughed. "Can you blame me?" She rolled her eyes playfully. "Flattery won't get you out of washing the dishes." I wasn't planning to. She walked over and kissed my cheek. "Good answer." I wrapped my arms around her. "I've learned." She smiled. Finally, everything felt ordinary. Neither of us knew how quickly an ordinary morning could become the beginning of something neither of us would understand. Later that afternoon, I stopped by a grocery store on my way home from work. As I crossed the parking lot carrying 2 bags, a speeding bicycle suddenly came around the corner. "Watch out!" I turned too late. The bicycle clipped my shoulder. I lost my balance and fell backward. My head struck the pavement. The world spun. Voices echoed around me. "Call an ambulance." "Is he breathing?" "I think he's awake." Everything faded into darkness. When I finally opened my eyes, white hospital lights blurred above me. Claire was sitting beside the bed. The moment she saw me awake, relief flooded across her face. "Thank goodness." She squeezed my hand. "You scared me." I smiled weakly. "I'm okay." The doctor finished checking my pupils. "You've suffered a mild concussion. Nothing serious? You'll need rest for a few days." Claire nodded repeatedly. "He'll rest." The doctor smiled. "Good." After he left, Claire brushed a strand of hair away from my forehead. I was so worried. Then something strange happened. A voice echoed clearly inside my head. "Please don't ask me anything." I blinked. The room was empty except for us. Claire hadn't moved her lips. She continued smiling. "I'll take good care of you." The voice returned. "If he remembers, everything will fall apart." A chill ran down my spine. I looked at her carefully. "Did you say something?" She frowned. "What?" "Just now." She shook her head. "No." She looked genuinely confused. "I didn't say anything." I forced a small smile. "Sorry. Must be the concussion." She squeezed my hand again. "You need to stop worrying." Then the voice whispered once more. "I'm terrified he'll discover the truth." My heart skipped a beat. I stared at her. She smiled exactly as before. Warm, gentle, loving. Nothing about her expression suggested fear. Yet the voice sounded painfully real. It wasn't angry. It wasn't cruel. It sounded frightened, almost desperate. I looked around the hospital room. There was nowhere the voice could have come from. Only Claire sat beside me, still smiling, still holding my hand, and somehow, still speaking words she had never actually said aloud, that I tried convincing myself the strange voice was nothing more than a side effect of the concussion. The doctor had warned me about headaches, dizziness, and temporary confusion. Maybe my brain was simply playing tricks on me. Claire smiled as she adjusted my blanket. "Feeling better?" "I think so." She brushed my hair back gently. "You gave me the worst scare of my life." I nodded. "I'm sorry." She squeezed my hand. "You don't have to apologize." Then the voice returned. "If only you knew how much I'm hiding from you." My chest tightened. I stared at her. She was still smiling. Her lips hadn't moved. Yet I had heard every word as clearly as if she had whispered it directly into my ear. I slowly pulled my hand away. Claire noticed immediately. "Did I hurt you?" "No." "Then what's wrong?" I forced another smile. "Just a headache." She looked unconvinced. "I'll ask the nurse for more medicine." As she stood, the voice echoed again. "Please don't look at me like that. I don't deserve your kindness." I watched her leave the room. The moment the door closed, I covered my face with both hands. This can't be real. Several minutes later, the nurse entered to check my blood pressure. "Everything looks normal. I need to ask you something." She smiled politely. "Go ahead. Can a concussion make someone hear voices?" She paused thoughtfully. "It can happen in rare cases." "So, I'm not going crazy?" She laughed softly. "No. Hallucinations usually fade as the brain heals." Her answer should have comforted me. Instead, it raised another question. Why did the voice only appear when Claire was near? That evening, The doctor finally discharged me. Claire insisted on driving us home. The ride was unusually quiet. She kept glancing at me every few minutes. "You've hardly spoken." "I'm just tired." "I understand." The voice whispered again. "He's watching me differently now. Does he suspect anything?" I looked out the window. Streetlights blurred past in the darkness. Claire reached over and gently touched my arm. "I promise everything will be okay." The voice answered before she could. "Nothing will ever be okay if the truth comes out." I closed my eyes. Two different Claires sat beside me. One spoke with calm reassurance. The other sounded trapped beneath years of fear. When we arrived home, she helped me onto the couch. "I'll make some soup." "Thank you." She disappeared into the kitchen. I quietly followed a minute later. She was chopping vegetables while humming the same tune she always sang when she cooked. From the outside, she looked completely at peace. Then I heard again. "How much longer can I keep pretending?" The knife paused for only a fraction of a second before she continued chopping. Her face never changed, not even slightly. I realized the voice always matched her emotions, not her expressions. Whatever secret she carried wasn't making her cold or distant. It was making her afraid. Afraid of losing me. Afraid of telling me something she believed would destroy everything we had built together. I returned to the living room before she noticed I had been watching. One decision became clear. I wouldn't confront her. Not yet. The voice hadn't revealed betrayal. It had revealed fear. Until I understood what she was so desperately trying to protect, I would pretend nothing had changed. Because sometimes the truth doesn't arrive through accusations. Sometimes it whispers quietly from the heart of the person you love most, waiting for the day you're finally ready to hear it. 3 days passed after the accident, but the strange voice never disappeared. Instead, it became clearer. Every time Claire spoke to me, I heard two versions of the same conversation. One came from her lips. The other came from somewhere deep inside her heart. On Thursday morning, she placed a cup of coffee in front of me. "How's your headache?" "It's getting better." She smiled with visible relief. "I'm glad." Then the hidden voice whispered, "I wish the concussion had taken away this burden instead of giving him another one." I tightened my grip on the mug. She noticed immediately. "Too hot." "No, it's perfect." She smiled again. "I'll be home a little late tonight." "Work?" She nodded. "We have a meeting with a client." The voice answered before she could say another word. "Please don't ask where I'm really going." My heart sank. I wanted to ask. Instead, I simply nodded. "Drive safely." "I will." She kissed my forehead before leaving. The apartment suddenly felt far too quiet. An hour later, my phone rang. Ryan's name appeared on the screen. "Morning. You sound exhausted." "I didn't sleep much." "You still recovering?" "Mostly." He laughed. "Good. I was thinking lunch." I agreed. An hour later, we sat together at our favorite cafe. Ryan studied my face for a moment. "Something's bothering you." "I'm just tired." "I've known you since college." He smiled knowingly. "Try again." I looked out the window. "It's Claire." His expression softened. "You two argued?" "No." "Then what?" "I feel like she's hiding something." Ryan leaned forward. "What makes you think that?" I hesitated. I couldn't exactly explain that I could hear thoughts. "I've noticed little things. Like, she disappears unexpectedly." "Anything else?" "She seems nervous whenever I ask simple questions." Ryan nodded thoughtfully. "Did you ask her directly?" "No." "Why not?" "I don't know." He stirred his coffee. "Because you were afraid of the answer?" "Maybe. Or maybe I was afraid the voice was telling the truth." Ryan sighed. "Nathan." "Yeah. Don't build a story in your head before you know the facts." I remained quiet. "If something's wrong, talk to her." "I will." "When?" "Soon." He smiled. "I hope so." That evening, Claire arrived home later than usual. She looked tired. "I'm sorry." The meeting ran long. I smiled gently. "No problem." The hidden voice whispered immediately. "Another lie." "I'm running out of excuses." My chest tightened again. She placed her purse on the kitchen counter. "I brought your favorite takeout." "Thank you. I thought we'd have dinner together." The voice trembled. "Maybe normal evenings will make this hurt less when everything changes." I watched her carefully. She laughed at one of my jokes. She asked about my day. She held my hand across the dinner table. Anyone watching us would have seen a perfectly happy couple. Only I knew another conversation was unfolding beneath every word she spoke. One built from fear instead of happiness. One that grew heavier with every passing day. The following morning, I woke before Claire. She was still asleep, her breathing slow and peaceful. For a moment, I wondered if I should forget everything I thought I knew. Then her phone vibrated softly on the bedside table. The screen lit up with a reminder. Appointment, 10:30 a.m. No location, no details, only the word hospital. Before I could read anything else, the screen went dark. Claire opened her eyes a few seconds later. Good morning. Morning. She smiled sleepily. You're up early. I couldn't sleep. She stretched and sat up. I have a few errands today. The hidden voice whispered immediately. Please don't ask where I'm really going. I forced a calm smile. I'll probably catch up on some work. She nodded with visible relief. That sounds good. After breakfast, she quietly gathered her purse and car keys. I shouldn't be too late. Drive carefully. I always do. The voice answered. I hope you never have to see me there. Once the front door closed, I waited several minutes before picking up my own keys. Guilt tugged at my conscience. Following my wife felt wrong, but living with unanswered questions felt worse. I kept a safe distance as I drove through the city. Claire never looked in her mirrors. She seemed completely focused on reaching her destination. 20 minutes later, she turned into the parking lot of a large private hospital. My heartbeat quickened. She wasn't meeting a client. She wasn't going to work. She parked near the entrance and stepped out slowly. Before walking inside, she opened her purse. A thick envelope slipped into her hands. Even from a distance, I recognized the hospital's logo printed across the front. Medical documents. She held the envelope tightly against her chest. The hidden voice reached me once again. Please let there still be hope. Hope, not guilt, not excitement, only fear. I waited until she entered the building before following. Inside, the lobby buzzed with quiet conversations and the sound of rolling wheelchairs. Claire walked directly toward the reception desk. The receptionist smiled kindly. Good morning, Ms. Claire. Good morning. I have an appointment with Dr. Harris. The receptionist checked the schedule. He's expecting you. Claire thanked her and headed toward the elevators. I remained behind a nearby column, careful not to be seen. A few minutes later, I reached the same floor. The hallway was almost empty. Claire stood outside an office marked Dr. Benjamin Harris, Specialist. Her hands trembled as she held the envelope. Then I heard her hidden voice more clearly than ever before. Please don't tell me it's too late. Tears gathered in her eyes. She closed them for a brief moment before taking a slow breath. The nurse opened the office door. Ms. Claire. She nodded. I'm ready. The voice whispered one final sentence before she stepped inside. If I lose him because of this, I'll never forgive myself. The door closed softly behind her. I stood frozen in the hallway, unable to move. Every suspicion I had carried since the accident began to unravel. Nothing I had discovered pointed toward betrayal. Everything pointed toward pain. As I stared at the closed office door, one thought echoed through my mind. Whatever secret Claire had been hiding, it was far bigger and far more heartbreaking than I had ever imagined. I remained outside Dr. Harris's office long after the door had closed. Every instinct told me to leave. Another part of me refused to move. The hidden voice had never sounded so frightened. I sat quietly at the far end of the hallway, trying to make sense of everything I'd seen. A few minutes later, the office door opened slightly. The nurse stepped into the hallway. Mr. Nathan? I looked up in surprise. Yes. She smiled politely. Dr. Harris would like a word with you. My heart skipped a beat. Me? She nodded. He knows you're here. I followed her into a small consultation room beside the doctor's office. Dr. Benjamin Harris stood when I entered. He offered a handshake. I'm Dr. Harris. Nathan. He gestured toward a chair. Please sit. I remained standing. How did you know I was here? He smiled gently. Your wife noticed you when you entered the hospital. I frowned. She did. She asked us not to bring you into her appointment. My chest tightened. She still wanted to protect me. He nodded. Very much. I looked toward the closed office door. Is she all right? The doctor became serious. I can't discuss your wife's medical information without her permission. I understand. He folded his hands. But I can answer one question. I waited silently. Your wife is not here because of another relationship. Relief washed through me. She's not. No. Has she been lying to me? He chose his words carefully. She's been carrying something alone. I lower my head. I thought. You feared the worst. I nodded once. So, did many spouses in similar situations? The doctor spoke kindly. I've watched your wife sit in that office several times. My heart sank. Several times. Yes. Always alone. The words hurt more than I expected. I should have been here. He looked at me thoughtfully. She believed you would give up everything to stay beside her. I would. I know. She knows that too. I closed my eyes. That's exactly why she stayed silent. The doctor nodded. She never doubted your love. I whispered quietly. She doubted whether I deserved the burden. A long silence settled between us. Finally, the doctor stood. I'll ask your wife whether she's ready to tell you. If she isn't, then you must let her choose her moment. I nodded slowly. I won't force her. As I stepped back into the hallway, I heard Claire's hidden voice through the partially open office door. I never wanted him to spend his future taking care of me. Every fear I had carried for days suddenly began falling apart. This wasn't the voice of someone hiding betrayal. It was the voice of someone trying to protect the person she loved most. And somehow, that truth hurt far more than any lie ever could. I remained in the hallway until Claire's appointment finally ended. When the office door opened, she stepped outside with red eyes and a brave smile she clearly no longer had the strength to hold. She never noticed me. She walked slowly toward the elevators, clutching the envelope against her chest. The hidden voice reached me once more. Just a little longer. Let me protect him a little longer. I closed my eyes. For days, I had prepared myself to discover betrayal. Instead, I had found sacrifice. That realization shattered me. I quietly waited until she left the building before returning to my car. The drive home felt longer than ever before. Every memory of the past few weeks looked different now. Her late nights, her nervous smiles, her quiet tears when she thought I wasn't watching. None of them had been signs of someone falling out of love. They had been signs of someone carrying unbearable fear alone. When I arrived home, I found Claire already in the kitchen preparing dinner. She looked up and smiled. You're home. I am. How was your day? It was eye-opening. She laughed softly. I hope that's a good thing. The hidden voice whispered. Please don't ask me today. I don't think I can survive saying the words out loud. I walked over and wrapped my arms around her from behind. She froze in surprise. What's this for? I just wanted to hold my wife. She relaxed against me. I like that answer. The voice trembled. I don't deserve this kind of love. I rested my chin gently on her shoulder. You've been carrying too much by yourself. She stiffened slightly. What do you mean? I smiled gently. I mean work. She let out a quiet breath of relief. Yes. It's been exhausting. The hidden voice answered. He's so kind. That's why I can't destroy his future. I finally understood. She hadn't hidden the truth because she doubted me. She had hidden it because she believed my love would cost me everything. That thought broke my heart. After dinner, we sat together on the balcony watching the city lights flicker across the skyline. Neither of us spoke for several minutes. The silence felt different now. Not empty. Protective. I reached for her hand. She looked at me. What are you thinking? I smiled. That sometimes we make life harder than it needs to be. She nodded thoughtfully. I suppose we do. The hidden voice whispered softly. If only you knew how much I want to tell you everything. I squeezed her hand. You don't have to carry every burden alone. She looked surprised by the comment. A tear formed in the corner of her eye. I know. The hidden voice answered differently. I wish I believed that. At that moment, I made my decision. I wouldn't confront her with accusations. I wouldn't reveal that I had followed her. And I would never tell her about the impossible gift that allowed me to hear the fears hidden inside her heart. Instead, I would stay beside her. When she was ready to speak, I would listen. When she became afraid, I would remind her she wasn't alone. For the first time since the accident, I realized the greatest distance between us had never been created by lies. It had been built by two people loving each other so deeply that each believed they had to suffer alone to protect the other. That ended tonight. Whatever battle waited ahead, Claire would never face it by herself again. The next morning, I woke before Claire. For a long time, I simply watched her sleeping peacefully beside me. She had spent months carrying a burden she believed would destroy my future. I had spent days fearing she was hiding another life. We had both been wrong, not about our love, only about our silence. When she finally opened her eyes, she smiled sleepily. "You're awake already." I couldn't sleep. She stretched gently. "Everything all right?" I nodded. "It will be." She looked at me curiously. "What does that mean?" Instead of answering, I reached for her hand. She let me hold it. "Claire." "Yes. You don't have to carry your pain alone anymore." Her smile disappeared. She searched my face. "What are you talking about?" I took a slow breath. "I know you've been suffering." Fear immediately filled her eyes. What do you know?" "I know you've been trying to protect me." Her breathing became uneven. "Nathan, I know you've been facing something terrifying." She slowly pulled her hand away. "Did someone tell you?" I shook my head. "No." "Then how?" I figured out enough. She stared at me in complete silence. Tears began gathering in her eyes. "I never wanted you to find out like this." "I know. I tried so hard." "I know. You were supposed to keep chasing your dreams." I smiled sadly. "My biggest dream has always been building a life with you." The tears she had been holding back finally escaped. "I'm sorry. You don't have to apologize. I lied to you. You protected me. I kept disappearing. Because you were afraid." She covered her face with both hands. I was terrified. I gently pulled her into my arms. For several seconds, she couldn't speak. Her shoulders shook with quiet sobs. "I thought." She struggled to breathe. "I thought if you knew, I'd give up everything." She nodded. "I couldn't let that happen." I held her a little tighter. "You never had the right to make that decision alone." She looked up at me. "I didn't." "No. We're husband and wife." Fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. I forgot what that really meant. "It means we carry heavy things together." She broke down completely. Months of fear poured out through helpless tears. "I've been so scared." "I know. I didn't want you to watch me suffer. I'd rather suffer beside you than live comfortably without knowing the truth." She cried even harder. "I don't deserve you." I smiled through my own tears. Neither of us gets to decide that. For the first time in months, the walls she had built around herself finally began to fall. Not because I forced them down, because she no longer had to stand behind them. Alone Claire remained in my arms until her breathing finally became steady again. She wiped away her tears and looked at me with trembling eyes. "I should have told you months ago." I gently nodded. "When you're ready, tell me now." She took a deep breath. "My doctor found a serious illness during a routine examination." Her voice cracked. At first, they weren't sure how severe it was. She looked down at her hands. Then came more tests, more appointments, more waiting, and every answer frightened me even more. I quietly listened. I kept imagining you canceling your plans, turning down opportunities, and spending every day worrying about me. She smiled sadly. "I loved you too much to ask that of you." I squeezed her hand. "You never would have been asking." "I know that now." For the first time since the accident, there were no hidden words. No fearful thoughts whispering beneath her voice. Only honesty. Later that afternoon, we returned to the hospital together. Dr. Harris welcomed us with a warm smile. "I'm glad to see you both." Claire looked at me. "I don't want to face this alone anymore." "You won't." The doctor carefully explained the treatment plan, possible outcomes, and the difficult months ahead. Some days would be encouraging. Others would test every bit of our strength. When the appointment ended, I reached for Claire's hand before we left the office. Neither of us let go. Over the following weeks, our families learned the truth. My parents arrived with home-cooked meals and quiet encouragement. Claire's parents filled our refrigerator, cleaned the house, and reminded her that accepting help was not weakness. Ryan visited almost every weekend. He smiled as he handed me 2 cups of coffee. "I was wondering when you'd finally stop pretending everything was fine." I laughed. I wasn't fooling anyone, was I? Not even a little. Claire smiled for the first time in days. "I'm lucky to have all of you." Ryan shook his head. "No, We're lucky to have you. As treatments began, there were difficult mornings filled with uncertainty. There were exhausting afternoons when even smiling felt impossible. There were long nights when fear quietly returned. Whenever those moments came, I simply sat beside Claire. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we remained silent. But we faced every moment together. One evening, we stood on our balcony watching the sunset paint the sky with shades of gold and orange. Claire rested her head against my shoulder. I spent months believing love meant protecting you from my pain. I kissed the top of her head. And now, she smiled softly. Now I know love means trusting someone enough to share it. I looked toward the horizon. Ever since the accident, I had wondered why I'd been given the impossible ability to hear the thoughts hidden inside the heart of the person I loved most. Now I finally understood. It had never been a curse. It had been a miracle that reached us before fear built a wall too high for either of us to cross. Without it, we might have continued smiling while silently drifting farther apart. Instead, we had found each other again. The road ahead remained uncertain. There would still be doctors, treatments, difficult decisions, and days when hope felt fragile. But we would meet every challenge as husband and wife instead of strangers protecting each other with silence. For the first time in months, the future no longer frightened us. Whatever came next, we would face it together. Months passed more quickly than either of us expected. Life settled into a new rhythm shaped by hospital appointments, treatment schedules, quiet victories, and difficult days. Not every test brought good news. Not every morning felt hopeful. Yet one thing had changed completely. Claire and I no longer carried fear alone. Every concern became our concern. Every decision became our decision. Every victory belonged to both of us. One Saturday morning, I found Claire standing in the kitchen making pancakes. She smiled when she noticed me. "You're awake. I smell breakfast." She laughed. I thought that might work. I wrapped my arms around her from behind. "You're getting stronger." "I am." She turned to face me. "Not because I'm fearless. Because you aren't facing this by yourself." She nodded. "Exactly." The hidden voice whispered softly. I never imagined sharing my fear could make me feel this peaceful. I smiled without explaining why. Even after all these months, I had never told Claire about the impossible gift that allowed me to hear her hidden thoughts. Some miracles didn't need explanations. They only needed gratitude. Later that afternoon, Ryan stopped by carrying 2 bags of groceries. "I figured I'd save you both a trip." Claire laughed. "You're becoming impossible to get rid of." He grinned. "That's what friends are for." We spent the afternoon talking about ordinary things. Movies, travel plans, the ridiculous way Ryan always managed to burn toast. For the first time in a long while, our home sounded more like laughter than worry. After Ryan left, Claire leaned against the living room window. "I miss this." "What?" "Feeling normal." I joined her. "Normal is overrated." She smiled. "Maybe, but happiness isn't." The hidden voice answered. I almost threw all of this away because I believed silence was love. My heart filled with quiet gratitude. She had changed. So had I. That evening, we walked through the neighborhood park beneath rows of golden autumn trees. Children laughed nearby. Couples pushed strollers along the walking paths. Everything felt beautifully ordinary. Claire slipped her hand into mine. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "Were you ever angry?" I thought carefully before answering. I was confused, but not angry. I was hurt. She nodded slowly. "I deserve that." "No, you deserved honesty." She stopped walking. "I promise I'll never hide something that important again." I smiled. "I'll make the same promise." She squeezed my hand. No more protecting each other with silence. Only with truth. She rested her forehead against mine. I like that better. The hidden voice whispered one more quiet thought. This is the marriage I always wanted us to have. I closed my eyes for a moment. Somewhere deep inside, I wondered how much longer I would hear the voice that had changed everything. That a few days later, Claire and I returned home after another follow-up appointment. The doctor smiled as he reviewed her latest results. "We're seeing encouraging progress." Claire looked at me with hopeful eyes. "Did you hear that?" I laughed. I don't think I've ever listened so carefully. She squeezed my hand all the way home. That evening, we sat together on our balcony, watching the sun disappear behind the skyline. Neither of us felt the need to fill the silence with words. It was the comfortable kind of silence, the kind built on trust instead of fear. Claire leaned her head against my shoulder. "I'm happy. I know." She smiled. I never thought I'd say that again. Then, without warning, I heard her hidden voice one last time. If I had trusted him sooner, we would have faced everything together from the beginning. The familiar whisper echoed gently through my mind. Soft, peaceful, filled with love instead of fear. I smiled to myself. A few seconds passed. Then another. The voice never returned. I waited. Nothing. Only the quiet evening breeze and the distant sounds of the city remained. Somehow I knew. The impossible gift had disappeared as quietly as it had first arrived. Its purpose had been fulfilled. Claire looked up at me. "What are you smiling about?" I gently took her hand. "I'm thinking about how lucky I am." She laughed softly. I was about to say the same thing. I kissed her forehead. "Can I make you a promise?" "You don't have to ask. No matter what tomorrow brings." I intertwined my fingers with hers. "We will never hide our pain from each other again." Her eyes filled with grateful tears. "I promise. If you're afraid, I'll tell you. If I'm struggling, you'll tell me. We face everything together." She nodded. "Always." The stars slowly appeared above us as the evening grew darker. For a long moment, we simply sat there holding hands. There were still doctor appointments ahead. There were still treatments. There were still uncertain days waiting somewhere in our future. But uncertainty no longer frightened us the way it once had. We had learned something far more important than certainty. We had learned trust. As we walked back inside together, I realized the greatest truth I had ever discovered was never a secret hidden inside my wife's mind. It wasn't the mysterious voice that had changed my life. It wasn't even the illness that had tested our marriage. The greatest truth was much simpler. Love isn't proven by carrying pain alone. It is proven by allowing someone to help carry it with you. For a long time, Claire believed protecting me meant hiding her suffering. For a long time, I believed love meant respecting her silence. Both of us had confused sacrifice with strength. Real strength had been waiting for us all along. It lived in honest conversations, shared tears, joined hands, and the courage to admit when life became too heavy for one person to bear alone. Looking back, I no longer wish the strange accident had never happened. Without it, I might never have understood the fear hidden behind Claire's smiles. Without it, she might never have trusted me enough to let me stand beside her. Together, we stepped into our future, not because every problem had disappeared, but because we finally understood that whatever tomorrow brought, we would meet it as one heart instead of two lonely souls trying to protect each other from love itself.